The day Magellan found 3-meter giants in Patagonia. In 1520, Ferdinand Magellan made time in his worldwide seafaring schedule to stop in what is now Patagonia, where he encountered giants. Magellan ordered one of his men to make contact with a giant. The emissary's reaction would have to be seen, but sadly has been lost in history, and thus be sure that exchanging dances and songs would lead to a demonstration of friendship. Now let's remember that in 1520, people were a lot shorter than we are today. Now it worked. The man was able to bring the giant to a small island off the coast where the great captain awaited, Magellan. The description of the scene was carried out by a scholar during the day, Antonio Pigafetta, who kept the travel diary that later became Magellan's first voyage around the world. When he stood before us, they said, he began to wonder and fear, and he raised a finger upwards, believing that we came from heaven. He was so tall that the tallest of us was only up to his waist, and he had a deep, resonating voice. The illustration proves it. Patagonia was once inhabited by giants who dwarfed the celestial Europeans who came to conquer them. Okay, maybe that's not a perfect test, but it could be that the people Magellan encountered, the Tehuelches, were indeed huge, and therefore this myth has some basis in reality. On that small island, Magellan had his men give the giant food and drink, and then made the mistake of showing him a mirror. The moment the giant could see himself, he was terrified, wrote Pigafetta. He jumped back, throwing 4 of our men to the ground. But once things had settled down, the explorers proceeded to make contact with the rest of the tribe, hunting with them and even building a house to store supplies while they stayed on the coast. After several weeks with the tribe, Magellan came up with a plan. He had to kidnap 2 of them and take them back with him to Spain to test these giants he had discovered. But this had to be cunningly plotted, otherwise the giants would have gotten our men into trouble. Magellan offered them all kinds of metal products to waste their time, such as mirrors, scissors, and bells, so they would not mind putting handcuffs and chains on their legs. Whereupon, these giants were pleased to see these chains, not knowing where to put them. Magellan, however, lost evidence of him during the long journey back to Spain. The giants did not survive. But what Magellan and Pigafetta brought back was that story and the new name of the land of the giants, Patagonia. Its etymology is still not entirely clear. Some argue that it means land of the big feet because of the leg, although Magellan most likely took his name from a novel popular at the time, Magellan was called, and he told about a race of wild people called the Patagonians. Although they let the British pour cold water on the whole affair, Sir Francis Drake managed to come into contact with the Patagonians themselves, as his nephew summarized in The World Encompassed in 1628. Magellan was not entirely deceived in naming these giants. In general, they differ so much in stature, greatness, and bodily strength, and also in the ugliness of their voices, but neither were they as monstrous and giant as they were represented. There are some English as tall as the tallest we could see, but by chance the Spaniards do not think that any English would come here to fail them, and that makes them more audacious to lie. For scholars, that was like an open sore, and rightly so. According to William Sturtevant in his essay Patagonian Giants and Baroness Hyde de Neuville's Iroquois Drawings, the Tehuelches were just a particularly statuesque people. While Magellan's later voyages measured Patagonians up to 3 meters tall, others put them further into the 1.8 to 2 meter range. Popular interest in the giants of Patagonia waned when the scientific report began to appear. Sturtevant writes, some estimates from the 19th century or from measurements of some individuals are still high that they were more than 2 meters tall, but the best measurements of the Tehuelche men place them around 1.8 meters tall, perfectly reasonable for a human being, but totally unpresentable for a giant. If we accept the lowest and least documented of these means based on modern measurements of males, he adds, the Tuchelkis are nonetheless among the highest known populations worldwide. In contrast, male Europeans, such as Magellan in the 16th to 18th centuries, would have measured in a low range of 1.5 meters. His imagination, however, seems to have surpassed his small stature. But why was there such a difference in height between Europeans and these end-of-the-world natives? Animals, including humans, have a tendency to grow more in cold climates and less in warm ones. This is known as the Bergmann's rule. With a large body, you lose less heat and are therefore better suited to surviving sub-zero temperatures. So it's not accidental that the world's largest land predators like the polar bear live in the far north, while tropical creatures who lose heat faster are better suited to sweltering jungles. And over evolutionary time, environments can put the same pressure on humans, so the natives of glacial Patagonia would have grown in theory more than their European counterparts. In a feeble attempt to explain something without actually investigating the issue, skeptics claim that gigantism is probably the cause of many of the reports of giants in the Americas. However, they have never presented evidence of such a claim. Gigantism is extremely rare, so rare that there is no incidence statistics for this hormonal disease. In the history of the United States, there are less than 100 recorded cases of gigantism. In fact, the overwhelming majority of tall people today reaching or approaching 2 meters do not have any gigantism disorder. On the other hand, the percentage of modern humans that reach 2 meters in height is 0.000007%. So how come, for example, the Smithsonian happens to have in its possession 17 skeletons over 7 feet tall found in ancient burial mounds in a relatively small region of North America? And this is on Mysterious Society by Zach White. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.